Hey guys, happy Friday! Alright, I am on the last of the series for how to produce doll photo stories. So this week we are going to talk about photography and a few tips and tricks that I've learned over the years, what works best for me. So let's get started and jump right into it. Okay, again, photography is such a big subject. I mean, we could go really deep into that because, photography can cover all sorts of different aspects, but I'm just going to cover it in pertaining to the dolls and to the blog. So I'm just going to cover three main points, which will be the type of camera I use, lighting, and how I go about photographing the dolls. The camera I use is a Canon DSLR camera. This one is just a really basic one. It's kind of the starter end of the SLRs. I've had it for maybe 6 years now, 7 years. I started out with a little Sony CyberShot camera when I first started doing pictures, but that camera was just not good for focusing on different areas of the diorama. So if you really want to get really good photos with really good depth, then investing and learning how to use the SLR camera will be a big help to you. Now, a lot of newer phones also have those features where you can set the focus where you want it, and a lot of them give you that portrait style picture where it blurs out the background, and you can do that in post editing too now with a lot of apps, but having one of these still is ultimately just so much better. So this was a game changer for me. It took me a long time to learn it, and I'm still learning it. I don't know everything about it, but I will go and watch YouTube videos how to use it and everything. So this camera is really crucial to helping me get really nice pictures. Now, of course, natural light is going to be your best friend, but I do not have natural light in this space, so I rely on artificial light. I do not rely on the flash, because the flash is bad. It will wash everything out. Now, if you don't have a camera and you're just using your phone, that's okay. I mean, there are plenty of good phones out there with really decent cameras. I use my phone very often now to take pictures, especially when I go outside, because it's just easier to get down at the doll's level if they're in an area where I need to take the picture and view it right away and edit it. So using my phone opposed to my camera is almost always a better option. But when it comes to my blog episodes, I don't use my phone, I use my Canon. So the next thing we're going to talk about will be lighting. Lighting is so important because without the lighting, you're not going to get proper exposure, you're not going to get proper focus, and you're not going to get that more realistic feel to your photo. So first off, don't use your flash. If you're indoors and you need extra light, find another way to light your diorama or your setting, because if you use the flash, it's going to white everything out and it's going to flatten your picture, and you're not going to get the depth you need to make things look more real and to give your photo dimension. So the way I have started, when I started out with these dioramas, I had trouble lighting them, and I was using the flash, and I was hating the way my pictures came out. It looked horrid. And so I tried to light with like lamps and things like that, and I was still getting too many shadows. I needed an overhead lighting. And so that's when I figured out using the Christmas lights works for me in this type of setup. There are also some really great LED lights you can find. They're like strips, and you can just stick them up somewhere and light up a space. So I'm thinking about investing in those. I also have some IKEA lights that work really good for LED lighting, and they're nice and bright, way brighter than these Christmas lights, and these lights are getting pretty old, and I'm gonna have to figure out a way to change them out because they're just not as bright as they used to be. And of course you can see there's different tones, like this one is much cooler, and this one's much warmer over here on this side. So, you know, because they're different brands that I bought and different ones I've collected over the years. So I'm thinking about investing in these IKEA lights, but they're way more expensive. They're $25 per pack. And I have a set already in the supermarket, and they just light the space up perfectly. I mean, you want really good lighting, those are really nice, and they're LED strip lights. But they also sell ones, that same version with color. You can get them white, or you can get them with different colors, and you can change the color setting. So I thought that was really cool. So I am thinking about investing in more of those to permanently light Luke and Laura's house, because the Christmas lights, while they have worked for me for many years, they're getting to the point where I need to switch them out to something better. But like I said, when you're starting on a budget, you know, just go after Christmas and get you some of those LED bright white Christmas lights. Don't get the warm white ones, because those just don't light up as good. So get the bright white ones, and you know, just experiment with it. Some other ways to light things really well is spot lighting and using like small LED lights. Sometimes you can find them at the dollar stores, like the little book lights. Those are great for spot lighting, but you don't want to use that as your only light in the picture. You're going to want to use the overhead light and then the spot lighting to add more light, because the more light you have, the better your camera is going to focus on your photo and get a nice, clean, crisp image. So lighting is probably your most important thing you're going to need to work on when it comes to photography. So if you don't have a natural space with natural light coming in, then you're going to have to find some ways to light up that space, because using the flash, like I said, you know, it's going to wash everything out, and it's just going to make it look flat, and you're not going to have that dimension that you want, that you will see in other people's photos who don't use flash. So let me think here. Anything else about lighting? I think that's it. Like I said, just having an artificial bright light, white light, is really good. I usually turn off, I have the overhead light over here off right now, because when I take pictures, I turn it off because it will cast too much shadow into the shelves, and so I leave the lamps on and the Christmas lights on, but I turn off the main light overhead because it will often, you know, cast too much shadow, and it washes things out. It doesn't look right. So, you know, just keep fiddling around with things, play around with the lighting, figure out what works best for you, and try to keep that flash off, and use overhead lighting where you can that will brighten the space up. Before we move on to the last thing, which will be photographing dolls, I'm going to show you what lighting items I was talking about. This is the IKEA kit, the dioder, I think is what it's called, light kit. It's 4 strips of LED lights that you plug in. They come with really long cords, so you can get, you know, they're meant for like putting in like a bookcase and stuff like that to light things up. So they have really long cords that really work well, and you can plug in multiple of these into each other, so you can have a whole set going. They also make this in with the multicolor setting one, where you can change the colors on them, so that's really cool too, but I have not yet got that one. Also, I use little lights like this. These I cannot find anymore because I don't think they make them anymore, but it's just a little LED light. They were floral lights that you could turn on, and you can kind of see it's still lighting up. It's kind of, the batteries are going out. You can't change the batteries out on these. But the other ones I also use are these little balloon lights. You can get them online or at the craft stores, and you just pull out the little tab here, and then they light up. really nice and bright. And you can use these for spotlighting. I often use these for spotlighting to make it look like lamps are turned on in the dollhouse. So I put them up here in the ceiling, and I have them shine down over the lamp to make it look like it's lit up. And you can see it really does really nice spotlighting. So these are great to have on top of everything else. And then of course I also buy after Christmas or during Christmas. Often I'll grab a few more after the holidays when they go clearance, are these little wire lights. They're great for lighting small spaces up too. I wired up a Christmas ornament and made a chandelier. It's behind me here. You can see it. You can see it right there. See this chandelier? If we there we go. You can see I wired up one of these onto the Christmas ornament and turned it into a chandelier, and that gives me really great lighting overhead over the table. So another way to do it, like I said, just get creative. Make sure you add that lighting where you can, because don't just rely on what you've got around you. You got to add more lighting to a space, especially if you have a closed-in diorama that's in a shelf or that does not have a window nearby with natural light. So get creative. Okay, so now we're on to the last topic that I will kind of cover here today, which will be how I photograph my dolls. This is something that I've just kind of observed over the years, like what looks best when taking my pictures. And I also take a clue from many years of watching soap operas. And you know how they will focus on people's faces, like in a show or a soap opera, right? When you're watching a TV show, and then the camera angle changes to the other person's face, and then you see the back of the other person's head or whatever. So that's how I try to go about photographing my dolls, is depending on the subject matter of the storyline and like what is going on in that particular moment, I will either zoom in on their faces and give you that back and forth feeling when you're like watching a TV show, when they zoom in on one person's face and then they turn around the camera and you looking at another person, right? So that's what I do when I'm snapping photos. Now, if there's not dialogue going on, then I will pull back usually to try to give everybody a sense of the whole space that they're in, you know, especially if you're starting off in a story and you're kind of going into the scene, then you're going to get a more pulled back view of the whole scene and a setup of what's going on, so you can see what's going on in the scene, and then, you know, you flow into zooming in on the dolls' faces and if they're having a conversation or who's talking over here and what's going on over there. So I kind of approach it from that way, you know, like I'm directing a TV show and what's gonna happen next. For me personally, I don't, when I work on an episode, I do not type up the story ahead of time. I take the pictures first. I let the story flow organically while I'm taking the pictures. I have a rough idea in my head of what's going to happen, and I go from there. And then once I get the pictures on my computer and edited and uploaded to the blog, then I start typing, and then I really let the dolls express to me in the photos what they are doing, and I type it out. And I think that might be why it helps me portray the story more real. I don't know, but I feel like that might be why, because I let the photos speak to me more than just writing the story. I mean, like I said, I do have an idea of what the story is going to be when I go in to take the photos, so I have an idea of how I need to pose the dolls and what's going to happen in as I move the scenes along. But I think that's why things just look so much more realistic. But, you know, I could be wrong, but I feel like that is why. And so that's just what's always worked for me. I cannot type story and then take pictures, because I feel like it never meshes up together. It never looks right. So, also getting down on the doll's level, photographing them. Photographing at their level is going to be more realistic, as opposed to, you know, taking a photo from a higher angle where the dolls, you're looking at a picture and you feel like you're looking down at them, and you don't feel like you're in that space with them. So when you're taking a picture, make sure you're down there at their level as best as you can. Or take the picture from lower, so, you know, like when you're trying to portray that image of what's going on, like, say, you know, if you have a child in the picture and they're looking up at the parent, you know, portray that image from the child's perspective and move your camera up to be staring up at the parent, you know. That is camera angles. So let's see. Also taking pictures from different angles. What I'll do is when I pose the dolls in the next scene and I have it set up, I will take a ton of pictures from different angles with the dolls in that same pose and position, because sometimes when you take a picture from one angle, it looks like what you intended. But then when you move and you take the picture from a different angle, it doesn't look like what you intended the scene to be. And you can always use that picture for another purpose. So taking pictures from multiple angles before you set up your dolls for the next scene is a great way to have. And just taking multiple pictures too, because I've done this plenty of times. Like, I'll take one picture and I'll think, oh, that one looks good. Don't need to take another one of those. And then I get to edit it on my MacBook, and then I'm like, oh dear, what did I do here? It's not right. And so, you know, I only have one picture to go off of. I don't have multiples to you know, select the best one. So taking multiples is always good, just in case you need to, you know, edit one or get rid of one or whatever. So picking the best out of, sometimes they come out all looking the same and then you can't decide. But taking multiples, taking from different angles, getting down at their level, posing them as best you can. Posing the dolls probably takes me longer than photographing them, because I try to get them to look as realistic in a pose as they can, you know, shifting their body weight to where they're balanced, but they look like they're walking. Kind of leaning them against things to help them look like they're standing, without, you know, the use of a doll stand in the photo, which really takes away from the whole essence of the picture. You know, I know it's easier that way to take pictures when they're on a doll stand, but I just feel like it takes away from the whole artistic scene when you put the doll on a doll stand. So I avoid that at all costs. Sometimes I'll use like a little bamboo stick or something to prop up on the backside of a doll if I need to stand them up and I have nothing to kind of balance their weight off of, so I will do that. I also use, if I'm having two dolls talk to each other, I also use them to balance each other off of, to help them stand. And this can be a pain in the butt sometimes, because you know, one doll falls and they're like dominoes, they just all go over. But that is the best way to do it, is to just balance them off of each other and pose them. And it's trying. I mean, my patience has tried a whole lot. You know, dolls fall over all the time, stuff falls over, you gotta start it all over again. But if you finally get that scene up and you get the picture taken and it comes out the way you like it, then it was worth it. So, taking that time to practice posing them and working on the photography and everything is just, they're all going to help you so much in the long run. Me personally, I've been photographing my dolls since I was a kid. I still have pictures with my dolls from when I was a kid. I've always loved photography. And so part of it just kind of feels natural to me. But of course, I've learned so much more now in the past 8 years working on the blog than I have before that. So, you know, practice and not giving up and just keeping at it is so important. If you're really determined to learn how to do something, then you're going to research it, you're going to figure it out, you're going to practice, and you're going to figure out how to get better at it. So I hope this helped you guys. So I think that wraps up all this up for today and for what I was going to talk about in this small little series. Next week I plan to go more in depth on the items I use to build Luke and Laura's dollhouse. I get a lot of people asking me questions about it, and so I figured I would share with you guys. Eventually I will do a tour of their house, but you know, it's still a huge work in progress, so bear in mind that I still have a long way to go. I don't even think I'm halfway through their dollhouse. There's still so many other things I could do to it, and it just keeps changing and evolving. So I think I'll start there. I'll give you guys a tour of their dollhouse, and if there's a tour of any other dioramas you want to see, let me know. I could always do Peter's place or Sean's place or whatever. So that is it, you guys, and I will see you back here next week. Bye!